Today is January 14th, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Paul McCann in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
In Chicago, Illinois.
And when's your birthday?
June 24, 1923.
1923. Who was your father? What was your father's name?
Oh, Darwin, D-O-R-W-I-N, James McCann.
And your mother?
Edna Lily Kessler.
Kessler. Did you go through school in Chicago?
No, I was born in Chicago, and my father was a pastor. He had gone through seminary, and I was born there, and the church was, denomination was a small rural denomination. Most of the churches were in rural. Back in those days, there weren't churches didn't go to the cities, a lot of them. And he found a church in southwest Oklahoma, and we moved from Chicago to near Cordell, Oklahoma.
Cordell. How old were you when you moved to Cordell?
I was probably 6 months old.
Okay. Did you go through school in Cordell?
No, we did quite a bit of moving, small churches. And let's see, I was we moved from Cordell to let's see, I would have been, I'd been about 7 when we left Cordell, and the folks moved to a small church out in Kansas, and I went to a one-room schoolhouse, and it was about a mile away, and they didn't have buses or anything, so we walked to school.
What part of Kansas?
The town was named Waverly,
Waverly.
Kansas.
What was the name of the school?
It was just a one-room schoolhouse. I don't think it had a name.
Yeah.
We had one teacher, 6 grades were in the school. And we walked to school, and snow or whatever kind of. And I remember one time I was coming home, and we'd had a snow, and I was cutting across some fields, and I was getting pretty tired walking, and I saw my dad coming up over the brow of the hill to meet me. That was one of the memories I have.
Yeah.
One-room schoolhouse.
How'd your teacher handle all the grades in one room?
Well, there was probably in the 6th grade. Let's see, I would guess there might have been 20 kids in the school, and there was no petitions or anything, and they just she would. It was kind of individual talking, and the kids were very respectful. There was no such thing as a kitchen or anything like that in the school. Back in those days, we didn't have electricity and no running water, so we had outhouse. And you think about that, and you think, well, how did people live back in those days? But it was, and lunches were all sack lunches. Folks, your mother prepared them, and you carried a sack lunch to school. It might be a sandwich or with an apple or something like that.
Did you live on a farm?
Yes. my father was pastoring, but he did farm work too to make a living. Yes.
What chores did you do on the farm?
Well, that goes up to takes me up to when I was in grade school, and they moved to in the interim before farming, my father went more into the pastoral work, and auxiliary was he was a math teacher in high schools.
Okay.
In yes, high school, and that was main income. Back in those days, mothers stayed home and raised the kids, and cooked, baked bread and things like that. Because there wasn't even restaurants around back in those days.
Now, was that in Waverly, Kansas?
That was in Waverly, and also in down near Cordell, out in the country.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what chores you do on the farm?
On the farm, we folks didn't have much money. By today's standards, we'd be poverty, but nobody talked about it, didn't even realize it. You made your own living. The government was not in a situation to assist people. It wasn't even considered. And so I was thinking about that. My father didn't have enough money to buy a cow, but there was a friend in this town that said but he lived in town. We were living on 10 acres then. He could pasture a cow. He said, "I'll buy a cow if you take him and feed her, and bring me a quart of milk every day." And so I learned to milk cows by hand. No such thing as milking machines. And then in the summer, I remember my father. I can remember this. He made $100 a month with three of us children, and his mother, my mother, and and that was just 9 months. There was no pay for the 3 months, so most teachers had to do something on their own out there, and so on this 10 acres, he'd plant cotton and corn, wheat, and things like that, and we'd go out and make hay for the winter for the cows. And also I was in high school, and went to high school in Gotebo, Oklahoma, and that's in Kiowa County in Oklahoma, southwest Oklahoma. And Gotebo is the name of a Kiowa Indian chief. Maybe you've heard of the town. It's near Mountain View and Carnegie. And so we...
What year did you graduate high school?
When?
Yes.
In about 1940.
From Gotebo?
From Gotebo. I went 4 years in Gotebo, and in that school, my father was the principal and a math teacher in high school.
How big was Gotebo in those days?
It was just a little farming community. A train stopped through there. The old coal-burning train stopped through there, and it was, I'd say it was probably, it had one sandwich shop, and because I remember in high school, boy, it was a treat if you got to go and get a hamburger, and the hamburger was a nickel, and otherwise you were carrying a sack lunch, but
You ran the hamburger shop. Who ran that hamburger store?
Some
Hamburger shop?
family, some lady ran it. I couldn't, probably didn't know her name, but it was. Let's see, Gotebo would have had about 200 people in it, I expect. They had a blacksmith shop there, and it was really the school there was what they call a consolidated school. A number of areas around came to this school there in Gotebo, and it had all 12 grades in there. And they later built a gymnasium there, and I remember a house caught on fire one time there. We didn't, back in those days, like I say, we had no electricity, no running water, and the well water was undrinkable. It was because it came out of underground gypsum. It called gyp water. It was so hard you couldn't make a soap suds with it. And so our drinking water and all was rainwater from the cistern. Rain came off the roof, and the water, after the roof cleaned off, you turn the water into the cistern, which was a deep reservoir that was built underground, in the ground.
Describe your house there at Gotebo.
It was a 2-bedroom house, a big old farmhouse. Had a in the kitchen was a kerosene stove that you put a gallon tank of kerosene on the back end of the stove, and then you lit the wicks in the burners. And we had an outhouse. The cistern was running water, and your drinking water was usually set on a cabinet, and a dipper in there, and anybody that wanted to drink just went over, took a dipper and drank out of the dipper. And let's see, our light was kerosene lamps at night. And and at that time we did get a second cow, and at that time the war was coming on, World War II, and we went on food rationing, and for meat you had to have a red food stamp, and that allowed you so much meat a month, and then tires and sugar. Meat, tires, and sugar were hard to get.
Yes.
And so living out there on the 10 acres, why you could buy since my father had grown up in North Dakota on a farm, why he knew about livestock, so we bought a calf, a little bull calf, $5. Raised the calf and butchered that for our beef, and bought a pig and fed it, and then we butchered the pig, the hog for pork.
That was your 10 acres at Gotebo?
Yes.
Okay.
10 acres with a goat boat. And so then so I graduated from high school back in about 1940. And
now, how did the Depression affect you and your family, the Great Depression?
well, it was not only depression, it was a dust bowl. The dust storm blew in there, and you could get up in the morning and you could write your name on a table. The dust had accumulated. So,
How'd you keep the dust out of the house?
well, the windows were just single pane windows that slid up and down, and they were loose, and some people bothered their breathing at all, but it kind of gave you coughing, some dust pneumonia, they called some of it. And we didn't get down sick with it, but it was, and then the depression was really affected you because nobody had any money, you know. And like I say, a nickel, that was a big deal for, and at that time too, you to go to school, you had to buy your own school books. And the books were usually used books. They didn't buy new books every year and change the books. And so your school book might have several names in it.
Who was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher, and this backs up in my grade school, and at that time we were living in Independence, Kansas. And she was my second grade teacher. And I can't, Mrs. Evans, I think was her name, but I can't verify that. But I can remember back in those days they worried about, well, you took a lot of work learning how to read a clock, figure the hands on a clock. You learned how to write your alphabet and your names. You printed, and also you learned how to write, cursive writing. They quit cursive writing. I talked to my granddaughter last week, my great-granddaughter over in Edmond, and I wrote a little poem for her, and she said, Grandpa, would you print that? I can't read cursive writing. She's in first grade. Yeah. And and also teachers were very interested in you sitting up straight.
Yes.
Your posture. And I remember a little song that they used to sing, are you a camel or aren't you a camel? And say, do you have a hump? Do you sit at the table just as straight as you're able, or do you sit all in a lump? I remember that was a second grade. So, but that was my favorite teacher back in those days.
Did you pick cotton on the farm?
Yes, I did. And you drug a big long sack. It was about half as long as that sofa there. And what we call, there's two ways of picking cotton. One is to pick the cotton out of the bowl, or to snap bowls. And one is a clean way, the snapping bowls, burr is in the cotton. And you bend over, the Oklahoma cotton was only about knee high, and you either broke your back or you get hurt, and so you'd start crawling on the ground, and you'd run into burrs. And I remember I did pick, I think this one, cotton only lasted a certain season, and we picked, I think I picked a bale, that was 500 pounds, called a bale, cotton. And then it went to the cotton gin, and the cotton gin would separate the cotton from the bolls and the seeds.
Where was the gin?
In Goaty Bowl.
Goaty Bowl.
Uh-huh.
You know who had the gin?
No,
Okay.
no.
Where were you on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor?
Let's see, December 7th. Oh, that would have been when I was in junior college at Cameron.
At Cameron? Okay.
Cameron Junior College,
When you heard about the attack, what'd you think?
Thinking, and also hearing Roosevelt speak about it, it was a very unbelievable time. Of course, being a young person, why the effect of it wasn't as drastic as it was to older people. Yeah,
What were you studying at Cameron?
engineering.
Engineering. Okay.
I went there to enroll in agriculture because I was a farm boy.
Yeah.
And but I had always liked math and chemistry in high school there at Godebo. So when I went to Cameron, when I was visiting with some other boys down there, and just happened to be they were engineers, and I thought, well, that sounds like more interesting to me than studying agriculture. So the farm boys around that were going there in agriculture found out I'd switched to engineering, and so I got a lot of kidding about, well, you're going to take your calculator down there to milk the cows, and I would milk the cows for the agriculture boys. They had a dairy there, and we all there was no scholarships or anything like that then. You usually had a campus job or something like that. And folks said, well, we can't help you anyway. We don't have any money to help you in college. And I said, well, I'm going to college anyway. So I went there and signed up for a campus job. And it varied from, my first one was washing dishes in the kitchen. Big dishwashers you pushed them through. The next one was cleaning the home ec room, home economics, where the girls learned that. And then my third job was, by that time I was a sophomore, and was pretty good in chemistry and got a lab assistant, chem lab assistant job there. And never saw any money. It just paid for your tuition and your dorm.
Okay. Of course, the Cameron's there in Lawton. How does Fort Sill deal with the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
That was completely separate. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Because and I was taking my courses in engineering, and it was so distant it was not affecting us much there. Yes. But Fort Sill was adjacent there, but it didn't affect the town of Lawton back in those days.
Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted. Well, I'll make it this way. I was at Cameron, and I became 18 there, which would have been from 23 to 18 was 1941. And my father sent me they'd gotten it at home and sent me draft notes from the farm. And so I had to come back home. And back in those days, none of us had a car. Folks had a car, and that was about it. Mm-hmm. So my transportation was a suitcase with the name Aggies printed on it and my thumb. And that's the way I went back and forth from home to college. And the draft notice came to go the certain weekend, come back, and I had to go to Hobart to take an Army physical. Well, I was always interested in the Navy and in ships, and I thought, well, I don't, not really excited about going to the Army, but I did have to go in and take the examination. And my father and I had gone to Hobart for the examination. I passed the Army physical, and so I told my dad I'd still like to go in the Navy, and there was a Navy recruiting office there in Hobart. Hobart was 20 miles from Godebo, and went into this recruiting office and told him my interest in it, that I was just finishing up at Cameron. He said, well, sure, we'll take care of that. And so he signed me up. But of course, that was just the beginning of that. But he said, don't worry about the Army now, we'll. So then.
When did you join the Navy?
Well, the way it worked, finished at Cameron, and I got the orders to go into Oklahoma City. I was still at Cameron and Lawton on this, I think it was a Saturday, for a physical, because I had taken a Navy physical. An Army didn't count. And so I had no way of getting there, but a friend there in college had a car, and he lived in Oklahoma City, and he said, and he was a year younger than myself. I was 18, he was 17, but we went to Oklahoma City, and I went to take the physical, and I passed the physical, but they had me open my mouth, and they saw a tooth that needed filling, and they said, we can't accept you with that. So if you can come back this afternoon by 4 o'clock and have that fixed, why, you'll be in the Navy. And just being a kid, I never didn't worry about that. Well, how you going to do that or anything? Well, it had to be this friend I came up there with. His mother had a friend who was a dentist, and he took me in at noon on Saturday, filled my tooth, went back, and I passed the physical.
Yeah.
It was that close.
Yeah.
And so then the Navy had instituted a program. If you were in college, they gave us 2 years.
Was the college program?
It was to go to OU. If you were a college student, the Navy at that time had a V-12 program, and you automatically got 4 semesters that they would give you before you went. But we were on active duty. We had to go in uniform.
Okay.
So I was at OU in uniform for 4 semesters, got my degree in chemical engineering, and as it says there,
it says November 1944.
44, I
Yes.
went to New York City to Columbia University and took had a 4 months engineering, 4-year engineering course in 4 months at the Navy there, and having been an engineer, why the training was an engineering officer in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize that. I just was going, and so let's see. Then when we got the got commissioned, why they said we're not going to commission you as an engineering officer because the war was. Well, see, that was in 44,
Mm-hmm.
and we can use deck officers. Well, that was just a general office. So then, from then, they said they switched me from engineering after I'd finished all the engineering, and then went to Washington D.C. to ordnance training, which is ammunition.
Yes.
And I was there for 2 months, as this says, from March through April in 45.
Okay.
So I went from New York to Washington, D.C., and then that was in general ordnance. and then they wanted particular, so ammunition handling, I went to Boston then for 2 more months, and then that finished the training, and then I went to the Pacific and was stationed on the island of Oahu.
How'd you travel to Hawaii? How'd you travel to Hawaii?
Ship,
You recall the ship you
troop
were on?
ship.
You recall the ship you were on?
No, I don't, but it was a troop, a big troop ship. It was, I took it out of San Francisco, and it took 3 or 4 days to get.
What were you thinking going under the Golden Gate Bridge?
Well, it was. We said goodbye to it, but when I came back, I really welcomed it.
How'd you pass the time on the trip to Hawaii?
Well, the first day and a half, I was seasick, and we were in what they call the swells. The ocean was rough, and they said that the reason it was so bad then was the ocean was rough, and we were in what they call the shallows, and it took 18 hours to get past the shallows to the deep ocean. And it settled down, and the rest of it was quite normal.
So after you were over your seasickness, how'd you
Yes.
pass the time?
Okay. Well, we had to. We were assigned so many troops, we had to take muster of the Army. These were Army troops, and we were naval officers. And there was, I think in this one bunk room in the ship, there were about 12 of us naval officers. We had bunks in there too, and the troops were, and the ocean was so rough that you could hear tables slamming back and forth in the galleys, and the latrines were just overloaded with soldier boys that were on the troops too. So it was. I think it was just more or less passing time like that.
You need to.
Hello.
Hey, Mr. Paul, it's Tanya at Tallgrass. How are you?
Just fine. Can I call you back, Tanya? I'm occupied right now.
Yes, sir. Give me a call back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, I can't really remember. We didn't have, it was more or less trying to keep your senses in good order on that ship. I do remember landing on Oahu, and I was met at the ship with a couple of officers. And my assignment was out at the Lei Naval Ammunition Depot. It was right across from Koli Pass. You had to go, and it was in the valley, and if you went across Koli Pass, you crossed through the pass, and that was Schofield Barracks on the other side. That was the Army. Mm-hmm. And there, why, I was ammunition division officer.
What were your duties?
Hmm?
What were your duties? What'd you do?
It was the ammunition that I handled was the heavy ammunition, 500-pound bombs, depth charges, which are dropped in the ocean to blow up ships, torpedo warheads, and all these were stored in earth-covered magazines in the depot. They were concrete and then covered with earth, and they had huge doors on them. And we would get orders from Pearl Harbor out to, because Pearl was our central, and we'd get orders from Pearl, and I had 2 crews. At that time they were segregated of 20 white boys and about 40 black boy crew, and I would meet with them every day and give the petty officers, assigned each one of them, you go to this magazine and load out bombs, so many bombs, 100 pound, 250, 500, and load them out. And then I'd send another truck out to go to another one and all. And then they would go load those, take them to the the rail spur that was there throughout the depot, load them on the railroad, and then they would, from there, the rail would take them into Pearl, load them on the LSTs and ships, and head them for Guam. And those things would come in from, the bombs and depth charges were stored in these magazines, and they had to be kept at certain temperatures. And also the, now they did make the small arms there in the depot. They made for the small arms for rifles and shotguns, things like that. But the other material, it would they were manufactured elsewhere, and we'd have to store them in these magazines. And there were times that the boys would, they had to be so careful on some of these because these explosives, there was a satellite depot that blew up just prior to the time that I came there. They were loading this heavy, unloading some torpedo warheads, and the crane had to handle these things. They're 1,100 pounds and this kind of thing on some of these, and hit a high line and shorted out, set that torpedo on, and it blew the train up and everything just shortly before I got there.
How often would you get to Pearl Harbor?
How long?
How often would you get to Pearl Harbor?
About every week we'd go in there. Yeah.
Well, what would you do at Pearl Harbor?
Just checked in, making sure that all the orders were filled and went in correctly. Mm-hmm.
Could you see Battleship Row?
The what?
Could you
Yes.
see the Arizona and all that
Yes,
there?
yes.
What did you think when you saw the Arizona and all that?
Well, it was really a sad situation, yeah. And I was thinking, had I been about a year or two older, I could have very easily been there. But it just so happened, due to my age, the war was finishing up in Europe. D-Day was happening, and then I was in it was follow up in the Pacific, sending out explosives and ships to the to Guam, Philippines, and all. And it was back in then when they were hitting those islands, and
Were you following the progress of the war?
Mainly we were just doing our duty.
Okay.
A lot of things you didn't know
Okay.
what was going on.
Did you
We
know
did
the?
hear words about Roosevelt being sick,
Yeah.
and Truman. I think he became president while I was out there.
What did you think about Hiroshima, the atomic bomb?
Well, it was a terrible thing to have to do. That was the one that Truman ordered. And it took great courage for a president to make that decision. You know, you could go both ways on it. Well, why would you do that? But on the other hand, the Japanese had a culture that it was do or die.
Yes.
And even after the war was over, there were troops, there were Japanese that hadn't given up, that were hidden in these islands. And had this not happened, there'd have been a lot more Americans and Europeans would have died in that. And just more destruction. The destruction was immediate with the atomic bomb, but it was a sad case that was in some respects it was what could have been done, and hardly a different way of averting continual warfare.
Yes. What did you do in VJ Day when Japan surrendered?
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
That's the day I landed in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And was going out to the depot, the Lulule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a big celebration?
We just thought, well, that's going to really affect us here in the Pacific, because that's where it moved into, you know. Mm-hmm. Of course, ever since Pearl, it was talk about the atomic bomb, you know, there was no justification, but on the other hand, Pearl Harbor generated that.
Yes. Now, did you land there on VJ Day or VE Day, when the war in Europe ended?
It was the war in Europe.
Okay, you landed on VE Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
VE
yes.
Day.
That was May of '45.
Yes.
Yeah, the war was still going on then.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about VJ Day when Japan surrendered? That was in August of '45.
Okay, 45. Let's see. I was I think I was heading back to the States then. Let's see. I'll finish these dates here. Yeah, I was still in Hawaii then, 45, because getting close to, let's see.
Was there a big celebration on VJ Day?
Not in Hawaii,
Not where you were? Okay.
no.
Did you get to Honolulu?
Yes, yes, go to Honolulu. When the war was cooling down, why we could get weekends and go into Honolulu.
Okay.
Wasn't much to do there. You could go. We did more kind of going around through the island and seeing some of the old Japanese bunkers and things that were in Hawaii, things like that. But
So tell me about the trip back to the States.
Well, I went over on a troop ship, and I came back to the States, and there were 20 of us officers coming back, a number of chief petty officers who were non-commissioned officers, and they had, and it was a small pineapple ship. To fly back, you had to be a executive, be a VIP. If you in an airplane, never hadn't flown an airplane, and to back up, when I went to New York City, I went on a train out of Oklahoma City, and they had commissioned old passenger cars to move troops then, and it was old rattling windows on the old passenger car. You had to open the windows to have air coming through, and the engine. We were about heading for Chicago, and at the engine, we stopped out in the country. All the trains stopped, and wondered what went on. Well, the bar that transmitted the power to the wheels had broken in the middle, and it had dug up some of the ties in the rope, and we had to wait there until they sent out another engine to take us into Chicago. But yeah, that was so going to Hawaii and even going to New York City. It was, for today's rules, quite prohibited. Yes.
And so you came back into San Francisco under the Golden Gate Bridge coming home.
And what?
You came under the Golden Gate Bridge coming home?
Yes, came under the Golden Gate Bridge, yeah. And that was a wonderful feeling. The thing, too, when you were in Hawaii, why, the weather was always nice there. You get a little rainy spell, and the people there had never seen snow, and but you did miss the season, so it was kind of nice to come back for the seasons.
What did you do when you got back to the States?
Well, I came back to Oklahoma City, and looking for a career then, and looking for something the engineering profession. But Oklahoma City had very little industry, mostly a service city. So I sent out applications to Eastman Kodak and Dow Chemical. I was a chemical engineer, and I wasn't interested in petroleum at all. And they kept trying to push petroleum. I think, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm going to work in the chemical factory. So but then I also sent in Eastman, Dow Chemical, and sent in an application to Phillips and to Exxon, or Standard Oil. I got word back from Eastman in Rochester, Illinois, New York City, New York State, that I had the job, I come prepared to stay. If I didn't want to stay, they'd pay my transportation. But if I would come and stay, why, I had the job. And I had spent some time in New York and the East Coast on my officer's training. And I felt like I was more of a Midwesterner, so I didn't accept that job. And Dow Chemical they didn't get back with me. And I interviewed at Phillips here in Bartlesville. And they didn't have anything here, but I went to work at Kansas City Refinery and worked there 10 years, went to Kansas City.
No,
Lived in Kansas
was that with Phillips
Phillips.
in Kansas?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What'd you do with the refinery?
Well, I did started out in the refinery laboratory where we tested production off of the crude oil stills that made gasoline and aviation gasoline as well as motor fuel, jet fuel, kerosene, and light hydrocarbons, and we would test those. Back in those days, we put lead in gasoline, and TEL, tetraethyl lead, and it was a liquid, and we had engines in the lab, test engines, that we'd run the gasoline in. I was supervisor. I didn't run the engine. With the boys on the crews would run the engines, and they'd check the octane, determine how much tetraethyl lead to put in the tanks, and those orders would be sent out to the tank farms, and they would be measured out by the crews that worked out in the refinery, put it in there, mixed, and big mixers. It might take a day or to mix up a 100,000 gallon tank, you know. And then those samples, the laboratory I was working in, we'd send out sample boys to go into the tanks and drop bottles in there and bring samples in to see if the octane was correct to be authorized and to be shipped out. Mm-hmm. So we had tank loading, truck tanks would come in, tankers, and we'd load gasoline into their tanks, and they would take them out to the filling stations.
Okay. How long were you in Kansas City?
10 years.
10 years. Oh, I didn't. When did you leave the Navy?
I was the. Let's see, that's the dates that I got to think about.
Yeah, you had that paper right here. That
Yeah.
had the,
Yeah. Okay. I finished in Oahu on on May of 46, and took the ship to San Francisco then, and then received orders to go to Memphis to be separated.
okay.
And we thought to be discharged, and then they came in there and said, well, we're not discharging you. We give you a separation papers, and you'll be on ready reserve for the next 10 years.
And when were you separated? You had that piece of paper that showed. Oh, here it is, right here.
Oh, yeah.
July 13th.
Uh-oh.
July 13th,
Yes.
1946.
46, yeah. But I was still in the Navy I was in the Navy for a total of 23 years.
Okay.
And sorry.
Oh, that's
messed
okay.
that up. That's still plugged in, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Were you called up for Korea?
I was on standby for Korea. And when they separated you, you were in the ready reserve. I was in the unpaid reserve. You could choose to be in the paid reserve or the unpaid. And we had to go to meetings about once a month to stay in contact there in Kansas City. And my neighbor, he also worked for Phillips. He decided to join the paid reserve, and you get enough to pay your utilities, a little pay every month. And the billet was so popular that they didn't accept him in. So he was just waiting to go in, and he was in my same carpool, and it was in December. It was near Christmas, and that would probably have been in, let's see, when did Korea?
1950.
50, okay. And we were both we were working for Phillips, and he got orders to go to Japan. And he thought, well, this is crazy. I'm not. They messed up. So he checked with the paid reserve headquarters. And they was over in across Kansas. We were living in Kansas City, Kansas, and across the intercity viaduct was Missouri, where the Navy office was. And so he said, this is a mistake. I'm not even in the reserve, in the paid reserve. Since he was paid, all they had to do, the president just had to say, send him out orders. But the unpaid, he had to make a decision. I don't know whether Congress is involved, but it was paperwork. And so you were just waiting. Of course, we both had families by then, children and all. And so Dick was his name, was he complained to them over in Missouri and said, I'm not even in it because he didn't have an opening. Said, well, this call up made openings, so you're in it. He didn't even know it, and he tried every way to cancel that. But he went to Japan and was in Japan for about I don't know, a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And when did you come to Bartlesville?
I came to Bartlesville in '56.
56.
Uh-huh.
Were you still in the reserves at that time?
I was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. And that went, I was here till 1965.
That's when you got your discharge?
Yes. And since I was required to be in, I thought, well, I might as well extend that, and had to do some auxiliary things to, after my 12 years was up. Mm-hmm. I thought 12 years, 8 more years, why I could be on a retired status. And that's, so I did that, and we'd have to go to meetings, and that made you so many points, and and every year that I could, why, you sign up and go on active duty. So I went on active duty, even when I was here in Bartlesville. Went to Washington D.C. for, and that was shown here too as in the Bureau of Ships. And at that time, during that 2 weeks, you were eligible to be called in. And then you went back to your inactive status. Mm-hmm. And so over those several years there, I made 5 trips, one to Washington, D.C., and I took the family with me then, because they'd stay in the city with the children, go to the zoos, stuff like that. But I'd have to be out on a ship or in the office in Washington, D.C., and went to Norfolk, Virginia on one trip, one to San Diego, one to Los Angeles, and one to Jacksonville, Florida. and that you had to make so many points to make a year count when you weren't on active duty, and you had to make 50 points a year, and if you were under that by 1 point, that killed the whole deal.
Yes.
It wasn't a, well, we'll, and let's see, I was in for, they gave you 2 extra years to make up points that you might have missed earlier. So I was in the Navy 23 years, and I made 20-year retirement points, yeah.
Now, let's go back up. The V-12 program, is that the University of Oklahoma?
That was, yes, that's when I went to OU.
Okay.
And I had planned, when I finished at Cameron, I was going to go to Stillwater to A&M and take engineering there. And that's, I was just in general engineering training at college. It was Cameron, just 2-year college back then. And but then when the Navy had this V-12 program, they were needing officers, I guess, because being a kid, why, you didn't know what all was going on. So when they offered to go for 2 years to OU, why, we had to march in uniform and all there at the university. They took over the what do you call them?
What, the dormitory?
Yeah, they didn't have they were short of dormitories, so they took over the organizations,
The fraternities?
fraternity.
Yeah.
And we stayed in old fraternity hall for the first year. Normandy was the name of the old fraternity hall, and they started building South Hall dormitories, and we moved into them about the next year.
Now, there was a Navy base in Norman, wasn't there? Wasn't there a Navy base in Norman at that time?
Let's see. Well, no, it was just. I guess you might say there was a lot of us Navy
Yeah.
that was there, not actual ship base or anything.
Well, they trained pilots at Norman on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
North Base. There's a Navy.
Yes,
they
that's
trained
right.
Navy pilots. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. I was on the South Base, and the North Base was.
Yeah.
And that was all new for OU back
Now, when
then.
were you commissioned? You recall?
Yeah, I was commissioned right here. Was it was May of 40. Yeah, May of 45 when I finished in New York City.
Okay.
And
Now,
that,
what
then I
type-
went direct from there to Washington, D.C.
Now, what type of training did you have in your officer training in New York City?
Well, we had a lot of marching, which wasn't in the study training, but we were given, had classes every day over certain Navy aspects of engineering.
Okay.
And at night, we would take examinations on what we had that day. So if you didn't apply yourself, in my platoon, one of the boys didn't keep his mind on it, and every Friday they come out with, on the PA system, we're announcing the you know what bilge is in the Navy? That's the bottoms segment. Come out with the bilge list, and one of my friends in this platoon, his name came out in the bilge list. They took him right out of that officer's training, sent him right to Great Lakes in Illinois, into boot camp or seaman class. So there wasn't any any give and take in that thing.
Yeah.
So you always hope when the Friday come out, and you never knew what you did on any of your tests.
Yes.
You never got any test papers back.
Now, where were you in New York City?
In the what?
Where were you in New York City?
Oh, you know where Columbia University is?
Yes.
We were attached to Columbia University. Now, had I been in deck as a deck officer instead of engineering, I'd have had it really a lot softer, because the boys that were in the deck got to stay in dormitories in Columbia University and went to classes there. They had anchored an old Navy ship in the Hudson River, and all of us engineering guys were on this ship. And we lived in that for 4 months. And we had bunks in there, 2 stacked high bunks, and you had to walk the gangplank over to the shore to go to town, to go to New York City, downtown to Times Square. And the food wasn't all that good either there. And you got the other side of it, because the guys who were at the university taking deck training would have to come out there and spend a week on that ship, get a taste of what it was to live on a ship, and they couldn't wait to get off that thing, get back to the,
What kind of ship was it?
it was it wasn't a tanker, wasn't an oil tanker. It was just a regular warship,
Yeah.
old warship.
Like destroyer or something, or
It was bigger than that. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a regular.
a battleship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have battleship, and we had to stand watches at night, and go around to the ship and check. There were check places you had to initial to make sure you were staying awake, and you'd go in and you'd stand and watch till 4 o'clock in the morning. Then you'd go back to your bunk, and then we would. Then in the morning you had to be out. You had to be out on dressed and shaved, and take the gangplank over and be on the dock and calisthenics about 6 o'clock every morning. And there were limited laboratory facilities in the ship for all of us. I don't know how many were on board the ship, but there was several platoons of us, and you get in there. If you'd go in, say at 5:30 or something, well, you had to stand in line and try to see the mirror to get ready to because you had to be on deck and in full uniform. So I learned to get up at 4 o'clock and get in there before. But it was kind of a rock. The ship wasn't mounted or anything like that. It was, and all of our engineering training was geared towards ship knowledge.
Yeah.
And of course, if had my assignment been, I'd been in board a ship somewhere down in the machine room. So this was a cleaner duty what came out of the ordinance, but
Yes.
it was all just in the hands of whoever making decisions and requirements.
Would you join the Navy again?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
I'd like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
What?
I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The first one is V12 program. V12.
Okay.
When you hear that, what do you think of? The V12 program.
Well, I think it was a accelerated way of getting my, because got an engineering degree in 3.5 years, and you had to have, I forget how many, 144 hours, and I think I had 145. I was 1 hour above, and if you applied yourself and all, you did nothing but study and work and all, but I would prefer that. Now, when I was working in Kansas City, I worked with a lot of veterans there at the refinery because we'd come out of the war, and they could hire us, as in the refineries. And several of the guys I worked with had come out from, been in Italy and all in the depths of the war over there. And I know one of the boys, he was working in the lab, and I was working out in the plant, firing furnaces and stuff like that in the refinery. Because my first year there was not in the main refinery. They had a small individual refinery where they made tests on whether to do this process on a small scale. If it would be acceptable, it would be transferred to the big refineries like Borger and Sweeney and things like that. So there were 17 of us engineers in this A-still, they called it, in Kansas City refinery. And but the lab here, one of the fellows working in the SAB said, "Now, Paul, if you ever come in here, be sure to knock on the door," because he said, if you come up behind me, he said, if whatever I have in my hand, because he was PTSB, or whatever they call it now. Yeah.
When you hear officer training, what do you think of?
Well, it was intense. I'll say that.
Okay.
It was tough because you did your classes during the day, and then at night you sat at a table, and it's a big auditorium on this ship. I mean, you were covered in the hull of the ship, but tables out there, and guys are just with their books, and you go sack out, and you might have to do watches and all. So they were. It was an exercise in. Of course, this was all book stuff, but
Yes.
it was very intense.
Okay.
And if you didn't apply yourself, why, you might find yourself back going to basic training.
Boot camp, yeah.
Yeah.
Troop ship. When you hear troop ship, what do you think of?
It was pretty tough because it was a troop ship that I went over on, and they were in the troop quarters. They were stacked 5 high, and all your belongings were in a duffel bag, or a Navy we call it a sea bag.
Sea bag, yeah.
And they'd throw it in there on their bunks and all, and I felt sorry for them.
Wahoo.
Beautiful place, yes, it was, and I spent a lot of time outside because they said, don't be sitting here in the office. Go around and do your checking out magazines. Because, when I first got there, we had I spent the first 2 weeks studying a book that was that thick on ordnance for various aspects of the ordnance business, called the OP5 operation.
Yeah.
And so then when it did said, well, okay, now take your Jeep and don't want to see an officer. And and then weekends it was nice because we, after the war had pretty well dwindled down and the orders weren't coming in so heavy, why we got to do a little sightseeing on our own. We took, I guess, probably it was after Japan DJ Day that we were free and to take and we took a small plane and flew for the weekend. About 6 of us officers, and we flew from Oahu over to the main island, Hawaii, and took a sampan, which was an old type station wagon. Took a tour around the island through the lava flows and all that. Mm-hmm. So that was a nice aspect of that was outside of the naval process.
When you hear U.S. Navy, what's your reaction?
I have great respect for it. I do, yes. And well, it's changed from when I was in it. You got women in it now, and all, and I'm glad it wasn't that way when I was in. Yes, because you get that mix up in close quarters and stuff. Ships aren't built for that type of thing, restrooms or anything, you know.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, see, I was fortunate. I was blessed with the fact that I wasn't injured, and I had a job to do. Was able to do it as you would even as a civilian job, because when you look back over it, you think, well, there's no way you had any idea what was going to go next. Mm-hmm. So that was attractive. And to go to New York City and places that I would never been, never had been, never seen the ocean, you know, things like that, for an Oklahoma farm boy.
Yeah. Well, sir, this is an excellent interview.
Well, I don't think I much for you to write about, but
I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Well, thank you.
And again, this is January 14th, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Paul McCann in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
There.